Hello, this is Wicked Shrapnel, and I would like to tell you the story of Easter. I know that Easter's already over, I'm always late for everything, but anyway, here is the traditional story that I was always taught in Sunday school. Easter is a Christian feast and holiday celebrating the resurrection of Jesus Christ on the third day of his crucifixion at Calvary, as described in the New Testament. Amen. Alright, well, thanks for watching. No, but that's really all that I believed until I probably got into my teens, and that's when I really started asking questions. I was raised in a very religious Christian family, and things just started to not make sense, and like the origins of things, and I started to look deeper into stuff. Like questions would come up. It's like, well, if this is like celebrating some day when Jesus was crucified, then how come Easter is on a different day every year? Like if you look, Easter this year was April 8th. Last year it was April 24th. Next year it's going to be March 31st. What? That doesn't make any sense to celebrate some certain day. So I start to dig a little deeper into it. And which way do I want to go with this? I guess it goes back to, if you go all the way back, it really goes back to Constantine the First. And he was a Roman emperor who was a pagan. And a pagan is basically I think the literal translation is like country dweller or something like that. And they were the people that lived on, farms, farm people. And their ritualistic practices of the day basically were built on harvests and trying to know when the seasons are so they could plant their crops and stuff like that, and they pretty much, the rituals were around earth and harvests, and they would base like knowing the time of the seasons on the stars and on the sun and the things that they did in the sky about when these things were going to happen. So we really have to go back to like the winter solstice, and this ties into Christianity as well. And Constantine was a pagan who knew about all of these practices, but then he turned to a Christian and he commissioned pretty much these Bibles to be written. So the 50 Bibles of Constantine. And what I think, and what many other people have said, is Constantine kind of took all these scrolls and early Christian teachings and kind of merged them with some pagan traditions, and that's where our form of Christianity kind of comes from today. And so let me explain that. Where am I going to go here? Celebrating. That's different. Constantine. So the winter solstice. So the winter solstice happens every year, and that is when the sun gets to its lowest point in the sky from the perspective of the northern hemisphere, which is where these traditions came about in European countries. And so the sun, because of the earth that sits on its axis as it goes around the sun, like one part of the earth will be facing the sun during the summer, and then as it goes around the sun, it gets less sun because it's facing away from the sun. And that is the winter solstice. So on the 21st or 22nd of every year, the sun gets to its lowest point in the sky. That's when the least amount of sun in the northern hemisphere. So the sun essentially dies, and it stays at its lowest point for 3 days until it starts moving up again, and the sun starts rising towards the north more on December 25th, which is also a Christian holiday, Christmas. And so that's how the winter solstice ties into Christmas, based on the sun going down. And also from the pagan tradition, the sun moves towards the southern crux, which is a constellation in the southern hemisphere. And so the sun is on the cross for 3 days before it starts rising again. So I think you know what story that ties in with Christianity. And here's the southern crux, which is the southern cross, and it's a constellation in the southern hemisphere, the southern crux. So that kind of merged with a very popular story in the Bible. And so what about Easter? Why does Easter occur on different days? And this also is tied to those ritualistic traditions of trying to predict seasons and things like that. And it's really the celebration of, that's the equinox, the spring equinox, and that is when the days start getting longer. It's when the sun is halfway in between its highest and lowest points, and also when plants start coming about and growing, as far as from the northern hemisphere's point of view. And that is why there's Easter bunnies. So they don't talk about this here, but it's just like other traditions: Easter eggs, egg hunting, Easter bunny. And it's like, what is a bunny and an egg? That was one of my biggest questions growing up, is what do bunnies and eggs have in common? It makes no sense. Like a chocolate bunny, and then you get Easter eggs and you paint weird things on them. You color the Easter eggs and stuff. And that is another, like, pagan traditions, and those are signs of fertility when, plants will start growing, and eggs are a symbol of fertility, and bunnies, fuck like rabbits. If that's not a sign of fertility, I don't know what it is. So they're basic symbols of fertility and the coming of crops growing and things like that. So, and that's where, why didn't that come back? I had to search here. I searched up bunnies and eggs. There we go. So there's, like, you always see Easter, it's like bunnies and eggs, bunnies and eggs. Makes no sense. Why is there bunnies and eggs? So that's what it is. It comes from pagan celebrations of fertility and the coming of, like, a new season, spring, when plants and crops start growing. And also, like, decorating eggs, they would also, like, color and write symbols of good luck and give them to each other as signs of fertility. That's also based on pagan traditions. And let's see. Also, Easter is really coming from East Star, and the East Star is the sun. And that's another reason why whenever you see pictures, especially old pictures from way back in the day, whenever you see pictures of Jesus, it's always like there's a sun behind him. And if you look it up, like, there's, like, sun rays coming off of him. Sun, if you look at there, sun in the back of Jesus' head. And it is also why churches celebrate on Sunday, and why all churches face east, to face the East Star for their religious practices. So that made sense to me. When I started finding all this stuff out, it's like, and then you just start to see it everywhere. Like, all these old pictures, you always see, like, a sun drawn behind Jesus. So, like, the stories of Jesus is like stories of the sun dying on the Southern Cross for 3 days and then being risen again, and, like the resurrection of in Easter is really like a celebration of fertility of nature coming back and people being able to grow crops. And I didn't mention where the dates came from. This is also astrological. So the day that determines Easter is based on phases of the moon. So and how they determine it is it's on the first Sunday after the full moon. So the first full moon after the spring equinox, which the spring equinox is, let me see, spring equinox, just the equinox, was on March 20th. So if you look at the phases of the moon, here's March 20th, the moon was like new moon, so new moon, new moon, or wait, we're going to March, this is April, March 20th, so there we go. So moon, there's the new moon, moon's getting fuller, and so there we have full moon was on Saturday, and so the next Sunday after the full moon will be Easter. And why does Jesus being resurrected from the dead have anything to do with phases of the moon? Because these are based on old pagan traditions of harvest and the resurrection of harvests from the death of winter. So I'm not saying that, like, you know, any stories of Jesus and things that he did. I believe that Jesus was a real person, and that's a whole different story. But I think that a lot of Christian traditions were kind of merged into Christianity by Constantine, who was originally a pagan and later made the religion of the people Christianity, and ordered all the Bibles to be written. And this is like the earliest Bibles. Before this, all the ancient writings were like on scrolls, and he took all this stuff and made the book of the Bible up. So that's kind of things that I dug into, and you could believe it or not, but it makes sense to me. It makes a lot more sense about, you know, why there's bunnies and eggs, and why Easter is on different day, and all that stuff. So, and then you'll probably notice like the sun behind Jesus. If you like go to your church and look at pictures and drawings of Jesus, you always see like the sun behind him. It just makes you go, what's going on here? I don't feel like I'm getting the whole story. and also, yeah, the saying is the ad orientem. So in the Catholic expression of ad orientem is to the east. So they always face toward the east when celebrating Mass. So they're facing the sun during their celebrations. So, what do you think about that shit? Have you ever heard any of that before? And it kind of makes you think about all these like holidays, and there's a lot of holidays that are based on that, like harvests and stuff, and Halloween and carving pumpkins and the Day of the Dead. All these different traditions kind of got merged together into different holidays and things like that. So I'm just gonna have a beer. But that's all that I really wanted to talk about. And if this challenges your beliefs, then I'm sorry. But I am a very logical thinking person and like to know, you know, why things, someone tells me something, I'm like, why? That was my biggest question when I was a kid, why? And I still ask why. And until I find something that makes sense, and all that makes sense to me. So let me know what you think, if it makes sense to you, or if you just think I'm a pagan and gonna burn in hell. All right, guys, well, that's it. This was a little longer than I expected it to be. So, happy Easter! Bye!